So, good evening, good afternoon, and thank you for your presence, and thank you for those who are connected online for your presence also. I'm Emmanuel Rivière from Kantar Public, where I'm sharing, it's among other roles, our internal think tank called Centre Kantar Public sur l'Europe. And I'm very pleased to introduce this moment with my friend Axel from Make. You will introduce yourself, and we will welcome us in this new implantation for Make.org. Just wanted to say a few words to start. Obviously, Centre Kantar Public sur l'Europe has dedicated some research this particular year, on youth, but on a regular basis, Kantar Public is working on youth and youth policies with strong convictions that are reflected, I think, by the discussion we will have today. The first one is that when working on youth policies, there is a danger to replicate excessively what you already know. It's a danger because each generation is quite unique and not totally similar with the previous one for many reasons. Among those reasons is the rapid change in technology, the rapid change in online behaviors, and even among the youth, from 2 years, it can change radically. Reason why we have to learn and learn again from the young people about what they experience, about what they make, how they behave, etc. And not mentioning the particular experience of being young in years of COVID crisis and the particular impacts, lockdowns in particular, had on the young people's lives. So we learn, but learning doesn't only mean listening and understanding. It's critical, of course, to listen and to understand. But I think common conviction, it's that the most effective way to learn from the youth is to give the young people a word, a part in the elaboration, conception, in the shaping of policies that are dedicated to young people. And it's always worth giving opportunities to young people to be part of solutions and to integrate their contribution into solutions. I could illustrate that in many ways and speak endless about it, but I won't. Be quiet, because I think the discussion tonight will illustrate that perfectly, and the partnership we made a few years ago with Make.org illustrates the importance we put in giving people a word, giving people a possibility to contribute and to propose a solution. We partnered in France initially. We are also very happy to be partner on the Eurobarometer qualitative contract, and to be partner tonight in this event. Axel, it's yours.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I'm Axel Dochem, the founder of Make.org with Alicia, who is somewhere here. Thank you. We are very, very happy to have you tonight and to welcome you in our new office in Brussels, or new office, or first office in Brussels. So we are not taking all the office; we are just sharing it with other fantastic company, which is you are at the Impact House, which is very, very close to what we are done, where we are built for. So we are happy to be there. We are also happy to introduce Hendrik Naar, who is
not on TV, unfortunately.
Who is the head of public affairs for Belgium, who will be first people from Make.org on the ground here at the Impact House. I won't be long. I just want to say that when you mix engagement, civic engagement, citizen engagement on young people, and also in Europe. It's basically why we funded the company 6 years ago. Our mission initially was really how to find any ways to increase at scale and very significantly the level engagement of citizens in the conduct of public policy at different level, but definitely from the very beginning, Europe has been the scope we wanted to ambition. We are far from it, but this is really how we set the company. So to do it today with you is for us a big step. So thank you very much, online or in presential to be there. Today we'll have the opportunity to listen fantastic speakers. So Ilana Cicurel from the European Parliament, Mattia de Grassi from the European Commission, Ludovica Formicola from the Euro Youth Parliament, and also it will be moderated by Danielle Brady from the Euro Policy Center. But to start with, I'm very happy to welcome Biliana Sirakova, the EU Youth Coordinator for the European Commission. And I think it's a fantastic start to try to answer this question, which is no more on the paper, which is why and how to engage young people in the for Europe in their diversity. Biliana.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm very happy to be here with all of you today and with the online audience on an abnormally hot day. It feels probably the hottest day of the year, at least in Brussels. Indeed, when I saw the questions for this, why and how to engage young Europeans in all their diversity, I thought about them, and I would like to share some thoughts just as an opening for this event today. On the question of why we are engaging with young people, I think we can sum it up in two ways: that we owe it to them, and secondly, we need young people. And on this question of why we owe it to young people, I think it is not only because of the pandemic that Emmanuel referred to, which has hit young people particularly hard, but in general today and in the last 2 decades for certain, young people in Europe and globally face too many hardships. Lack of quality employment, access to housing, high risk of poverty, and anxiety about the future, the planet, anxiety about so many things, mental health issues. And I think these hardships, it's not something that at least I remember from back of my youth. It shouldn't be so hard to be young, right? At least this is what I think. And I think we owe it to young people to do better. And we need to engage them as it's their right to get involved in those decisions, which will at the end impact in them in the future. Secondly, we engage with young people because we need them. And as President von der Leyen said in her State of the Union address last year, Europe needs all of its youth. And young people, for many reasons, for start, young people make us adopt a longer term perspective. They make us think about the consequences of the decisions beyond the short term for the future. On the other hand, young people have very good ideas, innovative solutions, and to address the challenges, very overwhelming challenges we are facing today in Europe and the world, I think we need all talents, all hands on deck, all the ideas and solutions that we can get. So we need young people in this. But then if we talk about the how do we engage with young people? I think as a start, it's important to have a plan. It's always good to have a plan, to have a framework with indicators of what we are trying to do. And our plan at the EU level is the EU Youth Strategy 2019-2027. As maybe as some of you know, engage is indeed one of the 3 pillars of that strategy, which is engage, connect, and empower. And with the European Year of Youth, we also have the momentum to boost that plan and to indeed create new opportunities where maybe they didn't exist. and to support the member states in their efforts as well. I secondly want to mention youth organizations, because we engage with young people with the hope of youth organizations, and they're especially important partners in order to have the wide outreach to those young people who maybe are less represented and are less engaged. And thirdly, we engage with young people directly, and Kantar Public and Make.org have done wonderful work on that, and we are always looking for new solutions and new ideas to do that. Indeed, very recently we closed the most unique participative democracy experiment, the Conference on the Future of Europe, which allowed us to engage directly with citizens. And I think in the future we have to look more and more for those formats. And I want to mention that in the European Year of Youth, we are also engaging with young people through these new solutions. We have launched recently, the Commission has launched a new voice recording platform where every young person can themselves record their message and their idea in a short audio message on the key topics of the year. And this is really an opportunity to hear those messages without any intermediaries directly. We are trying also new approaches, which are about two-way communication. So we have launched policy dialogues with all commissioners and have committed to do these policy dialogues with young people. And this is a way to really engage directly into the policy-making process. And finally, I would like to point out that this year is also about creating new partnerships between all the different stakeholders, public, private, NGOs, the youth organizations. And I'm thankful to Make.org and Kantar Public for this forum, which is about also creating these partnerships where we can do better for young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have observed Axel, and I see that this is the way of holding the mic. I'll try. I'm not a pro of this. Thank you very much, Biliana, and for your great words. Yes, this is me. So indeed, I will make an introductory presentation today about our experience in Kantar Public around how and why to engage young people in all their diversity. I will speak a lot about the why and a little bit about the how, and then Axel will say a lot more about the latter point. So starting about the why, on the next slide, I think the first element is possibly the obvious one, and Biliana referred to it. Young people are the future of the EU. And let's not forget that though we do have a demographic challenge, young people, excluding the children here, are 17% of EU's population. So it's a substantial part of our citizens. But we also know that young people don't believe that their voice is being heard or counted on at EU level. Only less than half of them say that they agree that their voice counts at EU level, which is a lot less than what they say for national participation. We also know that young people are increasingly disillusioned by politics. They are the group of citizens that is least likely to vote. And therefore, there is a real need to engage with them and have them express themselves through other formats than the traditional participatory democracy and voting, which remains an important one, but we need to rebuild the link with youth. On the next slide, I have extracted a little testimony from one participant in the Conference on the Future of Europe, one young participant, which I think expresses well the kind of empowering and transformative effect that the fact of being listened to and being invited to a debate, being invited to come up forward with solutions has on young people. We see this in all our quantitative as well as qualitative studies. Young people really appreciate, as well as all the citizens actually, being invited to the table. They are immediately empowered and grateful for having this platform. However, we know that young people are not a homogeneous group. There are very diverse segments of young people, and for some, it's much easier to express themselves in this format, than for others. Therefore, the importance of making sure that we invite everyone to the table and that we break down the barriers that make these formats of engagement complex for them. On the next slide, I also put up some quotes which show the experiences of our clients when they take the time to actually listen to youth. So the experience of taking the time and listening to young people is not only transformative for the young people themselves, but it's also transformative for the decision makers and policymakers who, let's face it, do live in a little bit of a bubble often. Here you have some quotes which show the appreciation for hearing from the voice of youth directly, their experiences and their expectations, the connection that people have when they observe a group, observe a citizen dialogue, or observe even a qualitative research focus group. The connection and the immediacy of the aha moment is very strong on the client side as well. Yet, and that's on the next slide, we know that young people are still somewhat marginalized in the debates at EU level. We did the analysis of the discussions on the Conference on Future of Europe for the EU institutions, and we see that young people were only 9% of the participants in the platforms. It was different in the citizen panels where there were quota and age based on age and other characteristics. But what we do observe is that youth was not the group that was most forward-coming on this platform. Which brings us to the point about the fact that we actually need to come to them because they are not the ones who will come to us. We also sometimes, and still too often, see that maybe the youth that is being listened to in the EU institutions is not the every citizen, but it's the youth who has a habit or who is already represented in youth organizations, who is organized, who has also the capacity to speak up in public with confidence and come forward with great ideas. However, that goes against the need for diversity and therefore, again, the importance of bringing everyone to the table and coming to pick them up and bring them to the debate. On the next slide, I also wanted to mention a few much broader benefits that citizen engagement has on youth. So in Kantar Public, we have a model around what constitutes citizen trust. So trust is like the holy grail. It's what all the EU institutions all the institutions that political actors are playing for, but trust is quite an abstract concept. And we have a model which unpacks this into a number of dimensions. There are dimensions that are around mobilizing, like what creates, what boosts the acceptance and approval of an institution. We have shaping factors that are about building the relationship with institutions. And then we have a number of involvement factors. And you will see that all these involvement factors, so this is about capacitation, making people feel that they are able and empowered to contribute. Co-creation, so involving them in decision-making directly, and also consideration, rewarding them for their involvement. These are all the kind of factors that you also trigger through citizen dialogue and citizen engagement. Therefore, we also see this form of engagement with young people and citizens in general as a strong contributor to the important issue of creating trust. And now shortly from my side on the how to engage young people, and then I will pass the floor to Axel, who will speak about great examples. We see really 4 absolutely core principles that need to be respected. Firstly, the authenticity of the debate. It needs to be about open questioning, listening, no talking down, friendly atmosphere, and where young people feel that they are not being tokenized. It needs to be very easy. The hassle of the investment that the young people have to make to contribute has to be proportionate to the reward. Reward meaning also the kind of space they are given. So there are different modes of consultation. There are online modes, there are face-to-face modes, etc. However, you will not get the same level of engagement depending on which mode you choose for. In any case, if you want to go for engaging masses and going fast, and this is exactly what Axel will be speaking about, you need a format that is hassle-free. Third element is the diversity, making sure that we don't only listen to the selected few. And the final element, if we want this to be a long-standing engagement, we need to be careful about possible disillusion. Therefore, it's really essential that when a citizen engagement happens, it's followed through with action. And there needs to be a clear commitment from the outset that such action will take place. And with that in mind, I will pass the floor to Axel.
Thank you, Daniela. So I put the mic at the right place. I will take it if you want. So we are a bit less known than Kantar. So just to tell you who we are what we call a civic tech, which is a company who has been built 6 years ago. And there's been on one project, which is to increase significantly the citizen engagement. But not only engagement for engagement, but engagement for the positive transformation of society. So this company is operating now in a few countries in Europe. And we believe that giving a voice to citizens through operation is only the first step. The vision we have, which to be frank, for the moment is only a vision, but it's what we call the participatory conduct of public policy. We all are facing a decreased impact of democracy, and the democracy is challenged by itself. And moreover, we see in difficult time the decreasing consent to the collective decision. And is exactly the reason why we believe that massive citizen engagements can change finally the social pact, the social cohesion. And that's why in every country we try to operate, we try to build this connection between public policy, public action, and citizen involvement. So having said that, we made 2 operations for the conference on the future of Europe. It's on the next slide. We engage around 100,000 young citizens, half in France, half in Germany, about the same question, which is what the priority for Europe tomorrow. And we were practically amazed by the level of engagement we get from those citizens. They were contributing overall to something like 800,000 votes and something like a few thousand proposals. And so we could extract from it not only their verbatims, but much more than that. We could determine in a statistically robust methods, we can determine on which topic they all agree. And we believe that this content, the most agreed consensus, is really a fantastic tool to build what we call a citizen agenda and to make a public policy based on it. So here, I will not go through all the different consensus, but it's very interesting to see whether there are some differences between the young French and the young German regarding Europe. And finally, it reveals that there is a very strong overlap. And we saw that in other operations, there are more consensus between citizens and between states. So that's maybe a clue that we can use into reinventing Europe. Citizen-granted insight are building more Europe than between states. It's not supposed to replace states, member states, but there is some fuel there to find your common part. So, of course, on the climate change, on the energy transition, huge overlap. About the strengthening of the protection of human rights, very strong overlap. About fighting against tax evasion, very strong overlap. There are also some differences. For instance, about the way of doing the agriculture transition. They agree on the topic, but not on the way to do it. The German are very, very, very strongly focused on the animal condition, where the French are very much about the new way of doing agriculture. So there are some differences you can spot, but the bigger idea is there are a very strong consensus between all the people. All those contributions were contributed to the COFOR. So there are one event inside the COFOR, but it was an event which was dedicated to 100,000 young citizens. So on the next slide, the question is, why is it so difficult? What are the challenges of engaging the disengaged young citizens? When I'm meaning disengaged, I mean the people, there are some people at every age which are engaged by design. Those ones, we know how to get them. We hear to them, we know them, and this is not the challenge. The challenge is the people who are not engaged with political matters, not engaged with the political institutions, and potentially not engaged with Europe. And when I try to find why it's so difficult, it's because there is a kind of a lack or a low level of trust to the European institution. There is a deficit of accessibility because potentially those people have less access to digital things or to even the media who can tell them they could do something. And I will say the most important thing is a feeling of non-legitimacy. Why me? What I could do myself? And for all those reasons, it's very difficult. So there is, we just put in the middle something which is, there is one way to get them. You need to adapt the participation experience to the young disengaged citizens and not the opposite. And this is basically how we did everything at Make.org. We built the company to do that, to be able to find them massively, representatively, and to have an experience we can help them to be re-engaged. So if you do so, you make possible one thing, please, which is it's possible to engage 1 million young citizens in Europe. Why 1 million? It could be 2. It's just to quote and to say the change of scale. And 1 million matters, figures matters. 1 million of citizens engaged, it means few millions who discussed together. It means a legitimacy that is enforceable to the public policy. So those numbers are very important. So the massivity, the number of participants, it's important. The fact it could be done in every country, in every language is very important. The fact that those young people to be representative, I mean, reflecting of course their age, but also the gender, but also the region, but also the level of education. So it's possible to get 1 million people representative from the population. And at last, it's also compatible with a specific focus on marginalized groups. You know, when you are talking to 1 million people, you can miss some marginalized group. It's possible to get both the volume, the representativity, but also also to ensure those participants. What does it lead to? It leads to a legitimated results. You can really say from it, we now have the voice of young European citizens. And that's a big step. There is a step which is listening, as you say, understanding. There is a step about generating participation. But there is another step, which is this participation is legitimate. It represents something. So the question is now it's possible, is how you can do it. The first thing you need to address if you want to do it, please, Manon, is to well understood why you are doing it. Okay, you are not doing it to promise them that they will decide. It's another promise, and the other promise is a total disaster in his return to the citizens. Why are you doing it? It's because first of all, you are starting the mobilization of young people toward Europe. Maybe they start with participating to a consultation, but then you can take them and take them as far as possible in their engagement capital, up to being volunteers with the European Parliament at the next election. You can really improve and maximize the engagement capital of every young citizen. The second reason is the citizen agenda. Then you have at one place the visibility of their common consensus. You know, the 10 to 20 topics on which they all agree based on a statistically robust system, so on which you can really build more in-depth collaboration afterwards. The third reason is because you have this citizen agenda, you are catalyzing much more collaboration with stakeholders. Stakeholder could be the reps at the European Parliament, but stakeholders can be civil society, NGOs, companies. It could be a very wide scope of players that very hardly work together. But when you have a common citizen agenda, then you can have them to work together much more in deep. And at last, self-promotion. The most difficult thing is you make people working together, you get citizen engagement, and after a while you say, oh, now we need to communicate. Here, the communication is driven by the operation itself. So the first things to be very clear about to reach 1 million people is to be clear about what you want to extract from it. And your strategy is that, not decision. The second way of doing it is the experience. I told you that we are targeting the experience to the unengaged people. So if you go to the experience itself, there are some golden rules. Those golden rules are not written in the Bible. It's the one we build on our side. So there could be other solutions, okay? But on our side, or clue is first of all to start with one single open question. If you want to get those, you don't have space for a long questionnaire. You don't have space for comments on the long text. You have just one open question. For instance, what are your priorities for Europe? Second of all, extreme easiness of use. Extreme, brutally simple. To make sure at the beginning, you only request from them 5 minutes. Registration included, no more. Third of all, recruitment campaign. And that's a total disruption in a way usually you see consultation. If a consultation is a digital place where you're waiting for the people to come, you will have very little people. And the people who come are not representative, they are anti-representative. We are counterbalancing it by getting the people where they are. So we are building a digital campaign which can actually ensure the volume and the representativity. And last of it is data expertise. when you get 100,000 young citizens contributing, and when you want to say they say that, it means a totally new set of expertise around sociology, I don't know, and data expertise to really be able to say this is what's coming on. And in face of that, you have some things you should not forget, because they can kill everything, which is it needs to be open source because it's a specific topic which needs to be fully transparent. Transparency on the results, anti-trolling to make sure you are talking about the young guys. You are not talking about group of interest maybe behind the bot. And at last, inclusiveness. All the systems have to be accessible to everyone. So there are some rules there. And but now it's possible to get 1 million citizens engaged in every topic. For instance, it could be how to make Europe more resilient facing crisis, which is definitely one given topic which could be a new glue of Europe. We are all facing that, and we can build all together something next. And at last, I would just quote an operation we made a few years ago for the European election, just before in 1919, which is European, we Europeans. We asked with the same system to 38 million people one question: what are the concrete steps we can take to reinvent Europe? We get almost 2 million people participating, 11 million votes, and there were representatives from the European population. Then we had the 10 citizens, authors of the 10 consensus, who went at the stage of the European Parliament. They were collaborating in the morning with 350 NGOs, in the afternoon with all the political group of the European Parliament. Afterwards, we work with 200 political parties in every country in Europe to enforce the fact of getting a very concrete solution to those 10 consensus in Europe. And we ended by a marketing campaign, communication campaign toward 200 million European citizens just before the election, to push them to votes and to determine their votes based on the position of the political parties on the common part of Europe. We did it on the European citizen. We could have done it purely on young citizens. So thank you for your attention. I'm sure I talked too much, but now you have experts who will talk much better than me, and of course I have my English. So thank you very much. And Danielle, welcome. The floor is yours.
So is this on? Yeah. I'm delighted to be here this evening to moderate the panel discussion on what are the perspectives for engaging younger generations in the democratic processes. And I'm joined here this evening, who will be joining in the discussion is MEP Ilana Cicurel, Mattia Grassi from the European Commission, and Ludovica Formicola from the European Youth Parliament. So as many of you will know, in fact, perhaps all of you know, last year, Ursula von der Leyen, in her State of the Union address, declared that 2022 would be the European Year of the Youth, a year dedicated to empowering those who have dedicated so much to others. So designating 2022 as the European Year of the Youth endeavours to make increased efforts to include youth priorities in the decision-making process. And this is an important issue, as we know, for young people, as was evidenced in the presentations that we saw here just a couple of moments ago. And of course, today's policy agenda not only impacts the current generations, but generations of the future. And this holds particularly true for issues such as the climate crisis, where decisions that are being taken today, or indeed decisions that are not taken today, will be felt most by today's younger generations in the future, and indeed the generations of tomorrow. In Europe, where we're faced with demographic change and the challenges that that creates, The importance of intergenerational solidarity is perhaps more important and significant than it ever has been before, and therefore empowering young people and engaging young people is essential to foster that solidarity, as without the younger generations, intergenerational solidarity is impossible. I think we can all agree here that there's evidence benefits to engaging young people, and that in fact it enhances democratic processes and democratic outputs. However, and it's something I think was clear in the presentations as well, it's not enough to simply endeavor to engage young people. It must go beyond that to ensure inclusive and diverse engagement and empowerment. Young people, like any other group in society, are diverse in terms of their background, their nationality, their ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and also in terms of thoughts and opinions. And therefore, it's important that when we talk about youth engagement, that we ensure that engagement is diverse and inclusive. And with this in mind, and looking forward to our discussion that we will now have, and in the context of the European Parliament elections, which of course are set to take place in 2024, we're going to look at how can the voices of the younger generation be promoted, and what are the best ways to engage young people in the democratic process. And furthermore, how can we ensure an inclusive engagement whereby the voices of young people from across all areas of the EU 27 are heard and indeed listened to. So this evening's discussion will focus on some key questions, which include what are the innovating and long-lasting solutions that can be implemented to engage young people, and we've seen already some examples of these. How can those who are deemed to be the furthest away from politics be reached? How can digital tools play a role? And also, how can the European Year of the Youth be a catalyst for youth participation, going beyond, of course, the Conference of the Future of Europe, which, as you all know, came to an end, or that phase at least came to an end in the last couple of weeks. So I'm delighted to be joined by our panelists, if you want to join me. Perfect. So Mattia, I'll turn to you first and ask you, you have the honor of starting us off. Reflecting on the Conference of the Future of Europe, which of course I mentioned there briefly, and in the context of this year being the European Year of the Youth, what are the instruments or actions that you think are needed to engage people from across all socio-cultural backgrounds?
First of all, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you very much to Make.org, to Kantar for organizing this event and for giving us the possibility to discuss and continue to engage, especially with the young citizens, because this was the whole point of the Conference on the Future of Europe that just ended. And given that I spent the last 2 years of my life working a lot on this, I will start from there, and I will start connecting with the question that we had at the beginning: why do we need to engage with youth for the European Union? And the answer for me that has not been mentioned yet is that our European youth is very, very extremely good. And their opinion, their contribution is incredibly valuable. And you might think that I'm telling this only because I'm here today with you, but actually not. It is because in the past 2 years, I've experienced this firsthand with our citizens in the panels. And I was a bit sorry that in the statistics that you showed, it seems that young citizens were not actually engaging too much with the conference. This is not entirely true. Why is it not entirely true? Because these statistics don't take into account very important part of the conference. For example, the events that were not all organized by the European institutions, because I want to also remember, given that I have the honor to have an honorable member of the parliament and the youth parliament on my sides, this was a joint endeavor. The first time that there was a joint endeavor of 3 institutions, based on the commitment of the 3 presidents of the institution, so the highest possible engagement, to put citizens, and especially young citizens, at the center of European policy making. And this looked like a mission impossible when we started, but actually we managed to deliver. And we delivered 49 proposals. Citizens delivered 49 proposals with the help of members of the parliament, members of government, members of local and regional authorities, commissioners, etc. Altogether, we managed to get this done. So this replies partially also to the how. We set a path. We showed that it can work, and it can work at the European level, which is not obvious because we speak 24 languages. I'm gonna pass on all the details of how many nights we spent trying to solve all the issues that were there, both at political level, but also the logistical level, because all of the people that have been working on this project, and there are a few here, have turned into interpreters, have turned into printing machines and everything. We have done everything. But apart from this first experiment that was successful, we also have a strong request from young people, but in general from all citizens, to get more involvement, to get more engagement. There are 2 proposals, I think it's in the 36 and 37 that came out from the Democracy Working Group that refer specifically to this. But there were even more in the recommendations of the citizens panels. I don't know if you are familiar with the conference, but basically there were 3 pillars. One was the digital platform, where for the first time citizens could speak about European policies in 24 languages. So you could share your ideas in Italian, and a citizen from Finland could reply to you. Then there were the citizens panels, where we had randomly selected citizens from 27 countries. We tried to be as representative as possible, but with a big bias, which was we wanted more young people. And we were, because we wanted youth really to be important in this conference, we also involved people that cannot actually impact policies because they don't have the legal age to vote, for example. So we involved citizens from 16 years old, and these citizens proved to be very active. Some also became also the spokesperson for their working groups. Oh, you're here already. He's doing a stage in the a short stage in the institution. It's very, we should give him the floor after, because he represents what we're doing here. But so the panels were really extremely interesting, because now we hear a lot of people saying, and please stop me when I become too long, that we hear some experts that are saying, oh yes, but these citizens are really all European enthusiasts, they are very happy. This is not absolutely the case. At the beginning, there were a lot of citizens that were very critical with the EU, and some others that were not particularly interested in the EU. But after 6 months of deliberating together, they became, almost all of them, very committed ambassadors. So this is, I think, a very, very good news. I will conclude very quickly saying just last part, because there was an important point in the slides that Axel presented, and it's follow-up feedback. The conference has concluded on Monday, but the actual work started on Tuesday, unfortunately for me, because now we need to deliver, and we need to deliver together and make sure that we give the right tools, the right instruments for citizens to continue to engage and to engage more. And it is true that some young citizens get disengaged because they don't feel they have the right tools. So this we have to work on.
Thank you very much. And now coming to MEP Cicurel, I think based on what Mattia has said here, we've had the conference and we've had youth engagement through that. But going forward, and based on your own work within the Cult Committee in the European Parliament and with education, and also, of course, thinking of the upcoming elections in 2014, How do you think that the European institutions should engage people now going forward, and engage young people, of course, now going forward in the democratic processes?
Bonsoir, good evening. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And I want to tell just a few words about Make.org, because I was lucky enough to be in Lille, in France, you know, to discover the conclusions of the work of these French and German groups, and I was very impressed by the methods. So I want really to congratulate you and to say that I think that you know, it's a very sophisticated method, and so just. We have a Renew Europe group, my group at the Parliament. We have decided to create a task force, youth task force, and I would really dream about, you know, maybe having a partnership with you, because it's not, you know, you are speaking about Agora, etc. But as you said, when you have a lot of participants, if you want really to have something out of it, it's important to have the method. And I was really impressed. So I tell you very frankly. And second, I really share with you the idea that we are going through dangerous times with populism growing in some of our countries. And that in history, we see that totalitarianism can emerge when you have a great number of people that are indifferent, not engaged, and a little number of very determined people that want to attack and to destroy democracy. And then, hopefully, you have also these minorities engaged, but the engagement of society is the best antidote against totalitarianism. So it is, so what you have been describing, and I think it's very, very important. It's a political function. What we are doing now is absolutely crucial. So and I also wanted to say that I'm very often meeting young people, and what I observe is that you are a very engaged generation. But you have suffered during the pandemic, it's clear. So I'm very happy to have this year. And it will be, I have a good news for you. It's very likely that we will have 6 months more in order to do more for you. So it will be a year and a half. We could do 2 years, maybe we will, but this is, so I think that you are not, you have suffered, but you are not, you don't like victimization. You want, you know, the means to act, and you want to be heard, and you want to participate. And for me, it's very, so this is very striking. And I wanted to say that, of course, we have to do much more. And I think that the Conference for the Future of Europe is a huge event. And for me, it's not, you, and thank you for all what you have done, but it's only a beginning. And we agree on that. It's a new way of writing politics. It's not, you know, an event, a kind of communication to say, you see, you participate, and then there is some conclusion. There are 49 very important proposals, but it will, you know, it was very clear at the conclusion session that it's a new way of writing politics together. So this is for me a beginning, and a very, very important beginning. But we are not, it's not perfect, but I just want to share with you that we are not we don't, it's not null what we are doing now. I mean, first of all, the young people have been heard. I think that now, if you observe, you know, we are divided in commissions, and environment commission, we call it ENVI, you know, environment, whose chair is my colleague Pascal Canfin. Is a very, very powerful commission. It's one of the most powerful commissions in the Parliament. A few years ago, it was a kind of marginal commission that nobody cares about. You know? So this, and the fact that we have engaged ourselves to be the first climate neutral continent in 2050 is a huge event. So of course it's not enough, of course, and I know that you want more, and we have to be in this dialogue to do more and to hear you, but we are engaged in this climate change, and this is thanks to the youth. It's absolutely clear. So this is the first illustration of the fact that youth is heard. And the second thing is I want to give you the example of the European Civic Service, when it's one of the priority of the French presidency of the council, and it was an idea given by young people. You know, it's a collective for the European Civic Service, and we are. I mean, I was very proud to have an amendment adopted. Massively adopted for a call for a civic. So I won't be able to speak a lot about it, but I am free to answer the question. But it comes from the youth. So, but we have to do more. So I just conclude in describing new tools that we have created thanks to this conference. First of all, you will have a platform, a digital platform, where you can express your views on EU legislation, supporting local authorities in setting up local youth council. So you will have a tool to express yourself. And second, which is very important, it is a wish, but I'm sure that we are going to implement it. It's the idea of a youth check. And you know, we have today a climate check. I mean, as soon as you give, you know, a euro, now you have to check that it is okay with our objective, and it will be the same for the youth. So every legislation will go through this youth check. So it will be an impact assessment and a consultation mechanism. So this is, you know, so this is a proposal, and I'm sure that it will be implemented. And it's a big event. I mean, so I trust you take it. And I think that, just to conclude, I read a very interesting study recently in France, written by a sociologist named Frédéric Dabi, and it's a scientific data that show that why young people are a bit skeptical about politics. It's not because they think that politicians are insincere, but because they think that they are powerless. So I think it's interesting. It gives a kind of humility, but I think it's important to have the young people decide with us, because when you decide, then you understand that it's not so easy, that you have to have a compromise and consensus and very complex data to take into account. And second, I think it's very important not only to associate the young people to the decision, but also to encourage them to have a very practical, to have action in their countries at the local level, to see that you can do things. I mean, that, you know, it's not so powerless. So to have the whole process of deciding and having also the responsibility to, and I'm very attached, for instance, you know, in the schools, we are developing in France, you know, the idea of having the young people involved in the reducing the carbon empreinte. I don't know the word in English. Footprint. So this, but they decide, and so they are working with all the people around and it works, and they see that yes, politics can have an impact, and this is a way also to reconcile them with politics.
Thank you very much for that. And actually, just in line with that, and to come to you, Ludovica, talking about how young people perhaps see, to quote you, saying that politics can perhaps be powerless in some views. For you, what do you see as being the challenges and then the barriers for engaging young people in the democratic processes? Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. It is really a pleasure to be here. And thank you for this very important question. I think that also we have heard a lot of very interesting statistics. Some of them make me feel a bit bad. Some of them make me feel hopeful, though. And I'm also very happy that I see many young people here in the audience, because sometimes we feel like young people do not want to be included in the debate, but actually we do. And through the organization that I represent now at this panel, we have seen that across 40 countries, so not only within the European Union, but also beyond, young people do want to have a voice, and we're very much interested in the conversation of future of Europe. And they have grasped this opportunity to make the best out of it, to finally have their voice heard from European institutions. And that was not usually the case in the past, or it was happening in way smaller amounts. So I'm going to just introduce the European Youth Parliament for the ones that don't know. We're one of the largest youth organizations in Europe. Again, we're representing 40 countries. But what we do is that we try to educate young people on how to become active citizens by creating platforms for them to debate European, but also global issues, considering the scope of our organization. And we do this by having young people, giving young people the opportunity to shape their opinion, to be informed, first of all, because that is what young people also need, a space to share, to ask questions, the ones that they're not usually brought forward, because maybe they seem stupid, but there is no stupid question really, especially when you're a young person that tries to make a change in the world. And we do this by through two different approaches. The first one is through non-formal education. So we are a peer-to-peer educational program. We educate young people through capacity building events, through training events for them to develop their skills and learn how to become active citizens themselves. But we also organize more than 500 events each year in across these 40 countries for them to come together, create resolutions. That's what we call them. So basically there are some policy recommendations that do not represent any stance of any country, but it's just the young people from very different nationalities that are put together in a room and come up with the future visions that they want to see in Europe. So having that said, we as a youth organization, we do see many barriers though in including young people in the public discourse, not only at European level, but also at the national levels and local levels. So there are three main things that I thought when I received this question. I was thinking how to best summarize this to not take up too much time. So there are three main things that we think are the most difficult to overcome. The first is recognition. The second one is outreach. And the last one is information and education. So the first thing that I would like to tackle is the little recognition that the youth has as a role and as a player and a stakeholder in society, especially towards people that are traditionally, and young people are traditionally excluded and are marginalized in policy making and in public debates. Another great thing that we have noticed, and this is also a great topic that is brought forward now that the Conference on the Future of Europe has concluded, let's say, what are the instruments that we can provide young people with to monitor the implementation of the youth demands and the youth recommendations that now have been put together, thanks also to the platform, to the citizens panels and the conference plenary. Also considering that, as many speakers rightfully mentioned, many people that we target also, because we operate with people that are between 16 and 25, do not have the possibility to vote because they are not 18 yet. Then policy making by expressing their views, if not through voting, they need to find other ways of being engaged. Another thing that is also interesting is that now youth councils and assemblies are very relevant. However, at the national level, most probably they don't have any binding force, right? No binding power. So that is also an issue that we have identified. Another thing is the difficulty in reaching citizens that are not traditionally involved in the democratic processes. For example, rural areas for us are difficult to reach. Language minorities for us, for example, we as the European Youth Parliament, we operate in English, and this is a real barrier for many young people that do not have the possibilities to then learn a language such as this. Another issue that we have noticed, and this is also specifically important for us, is that we don't want to be a token. right? You invite one young person that expresses their ideas, and that's all very nice. However, we do really want to see the follow-up to this. And also, thank you for giving us the space to address these important issues, because I am just one representative, but there are so many out there that probably have even better ideas than I do. And the final thing is that European policymaking seems very far from young people. And that is the point why I mentioned information and education. It is great that now institutions want to cooperate with youth organizations, with communities to bring European policies down to earth and make grassroots politics also a reality that is taken into account. And finally, very sad to me is to see that only 9% of young people between 16 and 24 actually put their ideas in the platform. And this is exactly why we also advocate and we believe very much in digital tools. What about e-voting? For many students that are abroad, it's very difficult to vote. And also it brings voting and expressing your political opinion also very, very difficult for some people. Crowdsourcing is also another resource that has been looked into more or less, but there are many opportunities for crowdsourcing also at local levels, for example, not at EU level. Another one is e-budgeting, so participatory budgeting. That is a great way to see where young people would invest for their future. That is also a really good solution. So all to say, it is also great that the Conference on the Future of Europe has a top-down approach, which is good. We lead by example. However, we have seen in my organization, and I'm sure many other youth organizations would agree with this, a bottom-up approach is always very effective. So it is great to have the European Union giving new spaces, providing new platforms for exchanges. However, it's the EU that needs to get to the root, to the people that are not traditionally involved in democratic processes by going in schools, working with universities, working with communities that operate at a local level. And we are very much looking forward to seeing that happen.
Perfect. We can return to that in more detail. I'm also conscious of the time and the fact that we definitely want to leave some space for questions from both our audience in the room and also the audience online. So maybe to finish up, to finish up this part before we go to the floor for questions, I'll pose the same questions to you all. We've heard the barriers you've presented to us here of engaging young people. And of course, this is the European Year of the Youth, and we've just finished the conference, and we have the elections upcoming in 2024, which it would be great to get further engagement by that stage even. And from each of your perspectives, from the perspective of the Commission, from your perspective as a representative in the European Parliament, and also yourself in the European Youth Parliament, what is the key thing that needs to be done going on from the conference in as short as perhaps you can do it at this point? What is the key thing that you think needs to be done, and to make sure also that it's an inclusive and diverse engagement? I understand this is not an easy question to answer, and there's 100 million perhaps ways you could answer it, but just it would be really great to get your thoughts on that. So go to MEP Cicurel first perhaps, and then Mattia, and then we'll finish up with yourself. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will do as short as possible for this very, very important question. I would say that, if we want this year and a half year and a half devoted to the youth, being really reach all the youth, and not only, from time to time, we are all convinced by the necessity of Europe, I think, but from time to time, Europhile speak to Europhile, and it's very difficult. So first of all, I think that we are in a time not of Euro romanticism. I think that we have to be Euro pragmatic. If we want to convince people that are not already convinced, you have to show in all the different domains that Europe is bringing you something that you wouldn't have had without it. And so first, just to tell you that we have almost double, as you know, Erasmus, and our really our priority is to reach the young people that are far from Europe. And so it goes with also being far from what we call, to be included in society. So this is really, and so for instance, I am very much in favor of the development of the Erasmus for apprentices. And so it is growing and growing. It is very important. And I want to share with you the fact that we have a very important new program proposed by the Commission, ALMA, to reach the NEET, the young that are not in education or in employment, and it is very important. So to reach really all, so they have to have a European experience, and so you can help us reaching them. So this is how to communicate with them. How can we imagine, to not to wait for them, in the specific places we have in our countries, but to go to them, So I think that there is plenty of things to imagine, to aller vers, with, and this is a main challenge. Second, I think that we have to recognize that when you are engaged in a solidarity activity, and I know that it is a great expectations from the youth, that to have a common recognition of all the skills that you get when you are involved in a solidarity activity. And this is very important because I know that young people are waiting for it, but also because if you want to embark these young people, less convinced by Europe, less used to mobility, to come to mobility, to come to another country to get involved, or you have to give them something, and you have to reassure also their families that they will get something in terms of employability. And I tell you, and I can't develop, but I can testify that these young people, apprentices, or that the more reluctant they were, the more satisfied they come back with self-confidence, with all these what we call competences of the 21st century, capacity to communicate, capacity to innovate, to adapt to a new environment. These skills are absolutely key, and it is very difficult to convey this kind of skills. How can you convey that? I know that our Finnish friends are very gifted in that, but it's not very easy. But when you go to a mobility experience, or when you are involved in a solidarity activity, you gain so much what we call psychosocial competences. But I would like, and I'm fighting for that with young people, so you can help us as well, to have, and I tell it in front of the Commission because we need you, to have really a formal recognition of these skills. Not only, if you, that recognized by all the employers, public or private, and this can make, this could be a really game changer. So I think that this is fair, because this is what you acquire when you get involved in a solidarity activity or mobility, and that's how we will reach and embark the young that are not so attached to Europe, because they don't know, they are not aware of what Europe can bring them. This is the idea that I have, but I think that just a single last word. I'm very sensitive to what you said about informal education. I think we have to make a big bang to change completely our pedagogy of civic education. We just finished a report about civic education, and I think that it has to be very lively, to create a parliament, to come to the parliament, to visit the national parliament, but they have to live something, because of course academic knowledge is important. I don't want to say that it is not important, but we have insisted in this very recent report adopted very recently in plenary that we have to be really in this informal and European experiences, and that's the way to reach a larger public, especially in the youth.
Thank you very much for that great answer, I think, with some really interesting initiatives and ideas on how to further reach those who I think are sometimes not included or excluded. So moving on to you, Mattia, with the same question, perhaps from the perspective of the Commission.
Yes, thank you very much. This is indeed not an easy question. Not an easy question also because unfortunately we live in a time that is not the easiest of time, with the pandemic that has hit us very hard, and with now a war raging at our borders. So it's very difficult. So despite the difficulties, I think there are a couple of positive elements that I would like to underline, and my colleague has spoken a lot about what the Commission is doing for youth, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I want to say that at political level, this Commission has been very clear in keeping youth as a star to follow. Despite the storms, we're keeping youth at the center. It's not the case that President von der Leyen has designated this as the European Year of Youth. It's not the case that before that, the largest recovery package ever was called Next Generation EU, because it's for the next generations of the EU. It's not the case that even before, this is the first Commission that has a Vice President Šuica, in charge of democracy and demography. Democracy for more engagement with youth, demography to respond to many of the challenges that were highlighted by Ludovica. We're working on how to make rural areas more attractive, how to address trends that are very problematic, such as brain drain, giving more opportunities to youth, but also children. Taking care of children. I am not gonna go into how problematic it is now with more than 2 million children from Ukraine that arrived in the EU. So it's a very difficult time, but it's a very clear priority for us and for the Commission to keep working for a more important role for youth. The Conference on the Future of Europe is probably the most visible project that happened. And that's why I think it's very important for us now to really follow up and give feedback. As you were saying, if we don't give feedback to youth, it's useless to involve them. I think that another point that was very important is we don't want to be a token. And that's exactly what we did with the conference. Many of the previous experiences, also organized by the institutions, were sort of separating the issues involving citizens and involving youth. This time we said, no, we are talking about the next generation. We are talking about the future. We need to build the future with the youth, completely involved and fully at the center of the exercise. And this is what we have tried to do, and we will continue. The Commission will issue a communication most likely already in June with the first sort of follow-up ideas from the conference. The President von der Leyen has announced that she will likely also announce new elements during her State of the Union address in September. So we are really working full speed, even if the conference has theoretically concluded its work, but we keep working, keeping this very clear head bearing, I would say, on youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very positive note to end that intervention on. And moving on to yourself, Ludovica, for finally the same question for you as well. And of course, you addressed many of the barriers, but what for you is the main thing, or the one thing that really needs to be done in order to further engage young people, particularly to make sure it's inclusive and diverse? Sorry, I know it's a really hard question.
It's such a big question, and I have so many things that I wrote down preparing for this event. Definitely recognizing non-formal education is a big part. So thank you very much for mentioning that. Definitely, we feel that as youth organizations, we put so much effort. And for my organization, for example, we're all volunteers doing this. So we really got something from this experiential learning experience that we have gone through the European Youth Parliament, specifically in my case. But I'm sure that it is the same for many other youth organizations that got together with their peers and saw the potential of European integration. They saw the potential of transnational dialogue. They saw the potential of getting together with people that seem so far away geographically, but in the end, in terms of vision of the world, of the future and priorities, they are all very, very similar. So that is what we try to preach. And we would like to see more support, if possible, from the European institutions for that, because we, as well as youth organizations, we try to be all around the continent in our case, and we see that it is difficult to reach people that are not enthusiasts. We see that it is difficult to reach people probably that don't come from private schools that have a certain level of English. We see that it's difficult to reach rural areas because it's difficult to find people that would like to organize events in smaller communities. So these are all things that can be done. And I see also the potential of having more contacts, for example, through the Erasmus program, so to put in contact different cultures, young people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, but also from different countries. However, is this really affordable for all young people? I'm not really sure. The Erasmus program is a great initiative, and I have been an Erasmus student myself. However, even at the very beginning, we have mentioned housing. That is a great challenge that we're all facing. So it is great that these programs are in place, and many young people did make use of them and will make use of them in the future, but we really have to make them accessible. What is European integration? What is European, what are European possibilities if we don't give all young people the possibility to take part in them? So that is something that we should really reflect. And we as an organization, we have reflected a lot in our strategy on diversity and inclusion, how to reach local communities, how to really have an impact and include more people in our activities. And we have put in place different working groups and different frameworks within our organization to then identify the challenges that we're facing, how to identify the barriers that keep young people that are discriminated or are marginalized by society, so that we don't marginalize them even more ourselves. And we have seen that creating multipliers is a great way of reaching those young people that are not traditionally involved in democratic processes. So creating more training opportunities for young organizations, for youth organizations to then go share European values at the local level. That is a great way of going by. Raising awareness, so definitely is also something very important, but also creating bridges. So having the European institutions organizing and at least facilitating the organization of these local events is definitely the way forward that we see. Youth spaces in general, just that I would just conclude by saying that creating new youth spaces, it being politics, it being about arts, it being about new innovative projects and innovation, digitalization, these are all very important topics, and we are very much looking forward to also facilitating this process together with you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the three of you for answering that question, because I know it was perhaps a little bit unfair, but thank you very much, and some very interesting thoughts and ideas as well going forward. I now hand the floor to Axel and Daniela for their remarks or perhaps questions to the panelists.
I was very, I think it's a very enthusiastic panel, because we just believe it's like we just take a carpet and behind there is many ideas to be put on. I like the soft skills Big Bang. I think that we need to think that way in terms of the level of disruption. I like the idea of the co-funding, the startup funding. I just realized there is a huge opportunity. The opportunity is can be said in that way. We talk a lot about platform, about tools, about methods, about actions. We didn't talk about topic. And in fact, COFA was designed through different topics, but the main topic was Europe itself. there are two topics on which we can definitely massively engage young people. The one is definitely environment. And if there is a common share between all Europeans, citizens, young or not, it's environment. The Europe can exist only through our environment if it was possible. So there is a huge opportunity of opening a conversation with 1 million, 2 million, 10 million young people about environment and use it at the next step of the conversation that has been opened by COFA. Second one is it's unimaginable the number of crises we had so far in the last years. So definitely resilience of Europe is a second topic. Whatever it's in the good direction or not, Europe is changing of scope today, changing of self-perception today. That's a second opportunity of a next conversation with young people. What will be the new flesh of Europe in the coming years? So two additional of opportunities on top of you.
And thank you very much for the discussion. And I will just pick up on one element that Mattia said in his first part of his speech. And I really love how you illustrated the transformative power of citizen engagement by saying, well, at the beginning, we used strict quota to recruit citizens who were representative even in their attitudes towards the EU. And at the end, they were probably, many of them, more pro-European or at least less skeptical. And I think this is exactly why the EU institutions need to be doing more of these activities, because the experience of such engagement is just unique and transformative for people. And given that we know that young people are more pro-European than actually the rest of citizens, it's crucial to catch them and keep them pro-European. And I will end on that.
Thank you so much, both of you, for that. We'll now turn to the room and take some questions for the floor. And also, if anyone online has questions or not, I'm not sure if we have any yet. We do, okay. Perhaps we'll take some from the floor first, and then we will take some from online. So if anyone does have a question, please do make yourself known. Okay, if we have some online, then perhaps we'll go to that. So I think we have some.
Can you hear me? Okay. I have 4 questions. Sorry for my voice. One question for Mr. de Grassi. President von der Leyen announced a permanent recurring deliberative citizens consultation mechanism by the Commission on the 9th of May. Do you have any more details on this?
No, as I said, we are working on that. These were not exactly the words that the president said, but she committed to give the necessary resources and time for this and framework for this to happen more often. So it will not be a one-off, but we need to, I mean, the proposals came out last Monday, so we need a little bit of time to assess them, because we also have to recognize the limits of this exercise, which were recognized by citizens themselves. There was this another young Italian lady at the last plenary that said that they are expert of nothing, they are just experts of real life. So this is very important, it's a very beautiful expression, but it means that I can keep my job and the honorable member as well, because we need to assess, to consider the budgetary implication, to consider better regulation, consideration, subsidiarity, proportionality, all the sort of more institutional matters we need to assess, and we need to reply. And the first reply will come already in June. The Parliament is also very actively looking at the proposal, especially there are proposals that are very ambitious and far-reaching and would require treaty change. So the Parliament is working on a resolution on that. So we are really working, but it's a bit too early now to tell you more precisely what will happen.
Another question for Ms. Formicola. Do you think regional politics could engage young citizens more effectively than European politics, as it can show impact and outputs more quickly and easily?
I think that they go well together, and definitely having a regional dimension is a great way to then have a more direct way of showing impact of the policies that are changed, that are amended according to the youth recommendations. So definitely, for what I was expressing earlier, definitely having a more local dimension, a more regional dimension is a great way to engage young people in their communities. And it is great that we want also the youth to be integrated in European Union structures, in institutions, for example, through a treaty change. But it is also very important to have a bottom-up approach. So we start from local communities, we start from a regional dimension, and then we grow. Because before, prior to influencing European institutions, we have to change the communities that we live in. And every young person and every citizen really can do so much in their local community. And definitely that is a great way of engaging, of creating interest, of raising awareness, also concerning the tools that then young people can have to influence politics at the national and international level. So thank you for the question.
Third question, and then there's going to be another one and we'll be done. Have we considered using social tech entrepreneurship, supporting social enterprises of youth, as a tool to empowering our youth?
Who would like to volunteer themselves to answer that question?
No, I am not fully sure that I understood the question, but we are considering anything that can help in increasing the engagements. What we noticed, the results of the conference, is that clearly there is a need for more engagement. Right? This is, as I said, there are two proposals. There were, I think, in the panel, in the second panel, the panel on democracy and rule of law and values and rights, etc. There were 13 recommendations out of 50, in which, in a way or another, through education, through platforms, through media, citizens were asking for more information and more involvement. So we clearly need a series of instruments, because, of course, we are such a diverse population that we cannot have one instrument that will solve all the problems. It's impossible. So I think that we need to look carefully at all possible avenues and then implement it. I don't know if someone wants to add. I hope I replied.
And to complete the answer, today is organized by Make.org, which is a social tech company working on empowering young people.
It was a trap.
And last question.
There's a question in the room afterwards. That's okay. Yeah.
Last question from the people online. The European experience is a testimony to a possible lasting diplomatic peace. How can young Europeans be peace-promoting agents for the rest of the world in times of such instabilities? Thank you.
Yes, I think that we, as Renew Europe group, is a very, very pro-European group. It's not so obvious, you know. We have anti-European groups also in the parliament. So, I think that we are absolutely convinced. I mean, with President Macron as well, that Europe has to become a power, and a power, it means to be more engaged in terms of military power, in terms of sovereignty, in terms of energy, So this is, you know, all, and we see that everything is interlinked. And it has, I mean, it has been our, you know, I arrived in the parliament in 2019. We have been elected in 2019. It was but it was not obvious for everyone. And what I feel is that we are going, as you said, we are going through really a kind of great change of Europe. And I think that there is a consensus being built now that we have to go further in terms of making of Europe a real power in terms of independence, in terms of industrial independence, energy independence, and to have a military also power to, and this is on the way. The process is being accelerated, and this is what we are going through is hard, but you know, from time to time, and you know that Europe has always reinforced itself through crisis, and we are going through a crisis, but this crisis is going to reinforce us. It's obvious, and you know, today we have received the the president of Moldavia, and we, as you know, we are very, very involved in the aggression of Ukraine by Russia, and it's, you know, it gives all its sense to our community as a political community, and it's a kind of, so of course we have to build. It's not easy, but we are building it, and I'm sure that more and more citizens are aware and involved in this building of a strong Europe. So I'm quite optimistic. I know that we are going through difficult times, but what I see in the parliament, what I see in the citizen support of Europe, make me think that world need Europe, because you have nothing out of Europe to save. I mean, the idea of democracy, the idea of independence of powers, and it's a kind of evidence today. So it's hard, but it will reinforce Europe. And so yes, you can never guarantee the future, but I'm sure that, you know, Brexit as well was a very bad news, but you saw that the 27 states were felt even closer, but because we realized that it can happen. So I think that we have to be confident in Europe, and what we are talking about. I mean, the fact that citizens are more and more involved in the decision is absolutely essential. We have to listen to these specialists of the day-to-day life. It's a beautiful way of saying it by this Italian citizen. I was amazed by this expression. And we have also, I also answered to the of course, all the new technologies, a new way of, we have full of humility, and we need, you know, this all this creativity coming from the youth and from also the entrepreneurship world. So welcome, and this is the time to come and help us.
Great. I will just take, there's another question here from the floor at the back of the room here. So if you would like to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So as we were speaking, or as you were speaking a lot about participation so far, I was wondering what chances do you see for the youth dialogue to get improved or enforced? Because the youth dialogue already has proven its success in the past years. And yeah, maybe it's a good chance to improve it. And yeah, what do you think on this topic? And in addition to that, what also could you personally do to increase the influence or the outreach of the EU youth dialogue? Thank you.
I just wanted to add a small point on the peace building aspect, and then I'll actually, because I have the same question myself, so I will leave the floor to you for the youth dialogues. We as the European Youth Parliament, we have national chapters in the Caucasus. We have national chapters in Belarus, in Ukraine, and in Russia as well. So this has been a huge challenge for us to create spaces for peace building. And we see that even if the youth is engaged and there is civic engagement, even in obviously in Ukraine, in Russia even, and in Belarus, this is not enough. It has not been enough. But one thing I can say is that not closing dialogue, not closing up, and believing in European values and creating more opportunities for exchanges brings us personally also very close to the people that are experiencing these situations and are experiencing war, repression of human rights. And I can say that I have personally been in both Belarus, in Minsk, and also in Ukraine. And I can see now, when the war started, that I feel so close to the people that I know personally. And this is the power of creating platforms for exchanges with the youth, because not only you exchange ideas, but you also create friendships. And this is the greatest tool that we have now as young people to create peace, to foster peace, and build a brighter future. And I will leave it to the youth dialogue. Sorry for the intervention.
Perfect. We'll go back to thank you very much. We'll go back to the question on the youth dialogues.
No,
yeah.
I mean, I think youth dialogue are very, very important, very important tool that we have. We have plenty of tools in the institutions that are already in place. We didn't start from scratch. We had citizens dialogue. We have the Have Your Say portal. We have the European Citizens Initiatives, many different instruments. But there is still a very strong request from citizens to have more. So we need to do more. I think that one of the elements that is the most difficult is what we have all spoken about. We have a very diverse set of citizens, and how do we reach them? It's probably not enough to say we do youth dialogues. It's probably not enough to say we do the conference on the future of Europe. We need to do several different things to address different audiences, but we have now some concrete requests to deliver on, and we are studying them. And of course, we will do it in the framework of all the starting from all the initiatives that we already have in place and trying to improve them and do more. This is, I think, what we can commit to do.
Yes, I would like to insist, of course, on the word youth and all the tools that we are developing, and you have understood that we are going through a kind of revolution in terms of participation of the citizen and especially the youth. But I will take very seriously the word dialogue, because I think there is a philosopher named Martin Buber who used to say that a dialogue is a situation when each party is ready to change. I mean, to leave the place having changed. And it is very rare in our society, a real dialogue. Not a place where you are, screaming your what you feel, and it is important. I mean, but to have really the respect. A dialogue, it's a two people or a few people respecting, and this is very important. And I think that in the world, I mean, we are under the reign of the algorithms. I mean, we are all kind of imprisoned in a way, because we are, as you know. You go to the net, and you are, you can read people with which you agree, and there is this kind of bias, and this is a big challenge, because we are all in this process of being imprisoned with people that share our views. So I think that to revitalize this dialogue is very important. And what I am experiencing in the, I don't want to idealize it, but it is true that the European Parliament is in a way, a great parliament because we have this culture of dialogue and compromises, not compromissions. Compromissions, you are losing, you are giving up in what is essential to you. But to compromise is to find the consensus or something that we have in common. And the dialogue can help. And so there is a culture of dialogue to rebuild so this is dialogue with the youth, to hear the youth, to have, but also having the young people listen to each other. And I am sure that one of our challenge is to rebuild this culture of dialogue, which is absolutely essential and fundamental in democracy, because this is what democracy is about. So to share and to be able to respect each other. And this is something that is in a way not eternal, but we have to cherish it and to develop it in the new generation spirits. And as soon as you are involved in a very pragmatic way of, okay, I decide and I dialogue with people that are in other situations than mine, and I am trying to build a solution, you have a kind of moderate and more complex way of contemplating the challenges. And it doesn't mean that you should be moderate and not be passionate and not be, but this is something that we are lacking very often. So thank you for having used this word that is very important. And we have, yes, but in many ways to convey this culture of dialogue, also in the schools, but also in all the informal spaces that we have to build, and us to help you building.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much as well for your question. I think that will bring the panel discussion to an end as we have gone over time. But thank you very much to the three of you for your wonderful insights, for your inputs and everything. I think everyone in the room will agree that it was a very interesting discussion. So thank you very, very much for that. I'll hand the floor to Daniela and Axel, I think, for some very final closing words, if you have them. But I think, there you go.
No more remarks from me before the drinks. So let's drink. And just one word is to say thank you to the team who organized everything from Kantar and Make.org.
Just if we can go to the next slide. I am afraid I've still something to present, which is the latest edition of our journal, the online magazine proposed by Kantar Public. It happened that it was dedicated to the youth, empowering our youth. And Ludovica, there is a paper on European youth, and I think there you will find statistics that will comfort your communicative dynamism, hopefully. And when Ilana Cicurel referred to Brexit, it reminded me that if young British people had been engaged, Brexit wouldn't have happened. So it's not a conclusion. It's a kind of memento.